Birst webinar and demonstration. We will be waiting probably about another minute to allow some folks to get back from lunch and join the webinar. So the webinar will begin in approximately 1.5 minutes. Thank you. So I see a lot of people are joining just now. So anybody who just joined, we will be beginning the presentation shortly. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining the CRM Manager Birst webinar and demonstration, Cloud BI for Business Execution, Transforming Raw Data to Actionable Insight. My name is Chris Conroy, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Partner Alliance for CRM Manager. And our other host today is Jim Smith with Birst. Jim, why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending. My name is Jim Smith. I'm a sales engineer for Birst, and I'll be leading the demonstration later on in the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Go ahead and transfer to the next slide. So a couple housekeeping items and the agenda for today. First, before I forget, if you have any questions, in the bottom right-hand corner of your interface, there is a section where you can submit questions, and feel free to submit those during the presentation, and then at the end we will respond to those questions. So we're going to be going through the agenda. Will be CRM Manager brief introduction, the Birst introduction, why Birst is unique, and then the meat of the webinar is Birst in action. Jim Smith will be presenting the demonstration, and then we'll have Q&A and next steps at the end. So next slide, Jim. So just quickly regarding CRM Manager. CRM Manager is a Birst Champion partner. We've been around since 2006 with offices in Philadelphia, New York City, and Pittsburgh. On the Salesforce side, we have about 500 plus clients, and we've done, I think that's up to about 1,200 plus successful Salesforce engagements. Very experienced consulting team. We support both domestic and international clients, and we've got a team of consultants and developers, all Salesforce certified, as well as Birst certifications, which now are more than 36. And we've got a very strong management team, former business owners, Fortune 500 executives, and all are former Salesforce customers. Okay, next slide. This is just a partial list of some of the CRM Manager clients. I just wanted to give you a sense for the type of clients we work with. Again, financial services, healthcare, life science, manufacturing, technology, and a lot of other different verticals. So just to give you an idea of who we've been working with since 2006. Okay, next slide.
So at this point, I think I was going to take over, Chris, and kind of talk a little bit about Birst and where we fit in the market and do the demonstration. And I guess, did you have any final comments, Chris, for the audience before I started in on that?
No, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Okay. So again, thanks everybody for joining. As I mentioned, I want to take about 10 minutes and go through a few slides to make sure that everyone knows who Birst is and why we think we're a little different from some of the other BI vendors in the marketplace. And as Chris mentioned, the meat of the presentation, we'll be going through a demonstration of the product both from an end user perspective, so how end users would use Birst, but we're going to spend a lot of time on building a Birst application from scratch. So both business users who are attending this webinar will get an idea of what they're going to see in Birst, and if there's more technical individuals on the line, you're going to get a feel for how we do things with Birst, both from a data integration standpoint, but then also from a report building and a dashboard building perspective. Now, just a little bit of introduction to Birst. If you're not familiar with the organization, we are an enterprise caliber business intelligence platform. We were really born in the cloud, and really what that means is from our inception, our product has run in a cloud environment. We didn't start with an on-premise or an on-client solution. We started with a cloud-based solution. Our offering does run on-premise if you'd like, but a majority of our customers are using our cloud approach. We have over 10,000 organizations that rely on Birst for their business intelligence needs. We have a global footprint, and what that means is we not only have offices worldwide, we have customers worldwide as well as partners worldwide. We've had tremendous growth over the last 5 years, 100% year-over-year growth. And one thing that I did want to mention is we do have a veteran leadership team. For those people who are familiar with the industry, the founders of Birst are two gentlemen by the name of Brad Peters and Paul Stalen. They're not new to the BI industry when they formed Birst. They were actually with Siebel and were the founding members of Siebel Analytics, which later became Oracle's business intelligence tool. And they thought that they knew they had a better way to do business intelligence, and therefore they founded Birst in the mid-2000s and have really enhanced the product to be a leader in cloud BI. A couple of the awards that Birst has won over the years, this slide needs to be updated. We just did recently win Howard Dresner's #1 Cloud BI vendor for 2015. And then I also wanted to highlight the Gartner Magic Quadrant for BI solutions on the right-hand side. Birst debuted on the Gartner Magic Quadrant in 2013 in the Challengers section. In the last 2 years, we've moved up into the right. We're still in the Challengers Quadrant, but you'll see we're very close to the Leaders Quadrant as far as other BI solutions. And we're going to talk about why we think we're more than just a BI solution as I go through the presentation today. Similar to CRM Manager, Birst has customers in a number of different industries. And what I want to highlight about this slide is, first of all, we have organizations in the Fortune 1000, so large enterprise organizations that are using Birst. We also have mid-market organizations as well as small, medium businesses that use our product. We are a general-purpose business intelligence tool, and what that means is you can use us with any data in any industry. So you'll see that there are organizations using us to report on sales, marketing information, customer data, operations, financial data. We also, on this slide, like to highlight that bottom rung, which is the embedded solutions. Those are companies, and it's just a representative set of organizations that have used our Open Application Programming Interface, or our API, to embed Birst in their application. So they have branded it basically using their own application, so you don't see the Birst name in their solution, but their users are using Birst and probably don't even know it. So we can be used both from a standalone perspective, but also from an embedded perspective as well. So that's a little background on Birst. What I wanted to do now is to move into just some industry topics to talk about why we think Birst is different. When we go out to our prospects and we are trying to find out if they need a business intelligence solution, here are some of the hurdles that we hear our prospects talk about. First of all, on the left-hand side, they're concerned about the explosion of data volumes that they have. We never go to an organization that says we lack for data. Most of the organizations we talk to say they have plenty of data. It's just hard for them to get that into the hands of their end users to act on it. So that's one of the struggles they have. Now, some organizations, depending on their size, have tried to address that issue by creating an EDW or an enterprise data warehouse. But what we find for those organizations who do have an EDW or an enterprise data warehouse is only so much of the data is available in that data warehouse. And your users are coming to them on a daily basis and saying they need additional information, and it's not very easy to quickly add data to the enterprise data warehouse. So that's another issue that organizations run into. The next two, the explosion in end-user demand and less time to respond, really comes from the fact that now many users within organizations are used to having things at their fingertips. They all have mobile devices, and they expect to have an app that gives them all the data they want in an instant. And they don't understand when they come into work each day why they can't have access to that information right away. And then finally, we run into organizations who want to provide business intelligence to all of their users, but the cost of BI solutions usually inhibit a mass deployment of BI solutions. Now, to address these concerns, Birst has developed its products from a different point of view. And really, what we have done from a Birst perspective is look at these 5 different points as trying to address those shortcomings that we see in the BI industry. So what are those different points of view that Birst has? Well, first of all, we think that only a real cloud architecture delivers business agility. We think that with our cloud architecture, we're able to roll out enhancements and new capabilities to our product very quickly so that organizations don't have to wait 9 or 12 or 15 months to get new capability into the tool set. With a cloud-based architecture, we're able to release new capabilities every 2 weeks, and we have a point release every 8 weeks. So organizations are able to get the new capabilities they want right away without having to go through an install of client software on everyone's machine. Next, we realize at Birst that the graphical user interface isn't the biggest problem for business intelligence. We do know that users want lots of different visual widgets to display information, but we know at Birst the bigger problem is the data problem. Organizations struggle more with bringing all the data together as opposed to getting a particular type of funnel graph or bar chart out to a user. Next, we know that BI is not just for the analyst. We know it's for everyone. So we want our tools to be used by executives who want to see dashboards, business analysts who want to slice and dice the data, non-technical business users who want to create their own reports, as well as operational users who might want to see a report every day, every week, or every month. Next, we think that a metric should be defined only once. What we see in our customer base is confusion because everyone brings in their own Excel spreadsheet to a conference, and everyone's definition of revenue is different, and everyone's number for revenue is different. And it's hard to make good business decisions for an organization when everybody's operating from a different definition or a different set of numbers. And at Birst, we think that a metric should be defined uniquely across the enterprise, and that everyone should be actually looking at the same numbers. And finally, we think that a 2-tier strategy is the right answer for everyone. And I'll explain what a 2-tier strategy means in a little bit more detail on the next few slides. But for the time being, note that we're going to allow you to combine information from an enterprise data warehouse and from independent silos of data that an organization might have. In order for you to kind of remember this different point of view that Birst has, I wanted to summarize it this way and use kind of the company's name as a mnemonic. So first of all, we were born in the cloud. That gives us the agility to deliver what users need to see in a BI solution. We provide an integrated data platform. So although we have great reporting tools, we also provide you the ETL, or the extraction, transformation, and load capabilities to combine data sources. We provide reporting for all users. So not just the executive who wants to look at a dashboard, not just the business analyst who wants to slice and dice the data, but even the non-technical business user and the operational user. We provide a semantic layer, which is a business layer that users can define what their dimensions and measures are once, and have a consistent view for all users. And then we do provide this two-tier strategy that I talked about. So let's just delve into that in a little bit more detail before I get to the demo. One of the things that makes Birst unique is that we do provide this two-tier strategy. Now again, this isn't a detailed architecture of the technology that Birst provides, but what I want to highlight here is everything that you see on this slide in orange is something that Birst will do. You'll notice that Birst can connect to any data source that an organization might want to look at. And the two tiers that I want to point out to you are, first of all, on the left-hand side, for organizations who have gone through the process of gathering requirements and have built an enterprise data warehouse, Birst can sit on top of that and report directly against it. You'll notice the gray arrow on the left-hand side goes directly into Birst Business Model and Data Navigator. That's our way of saying that we provide a business semantics layer that's going to allow a business user to query the enterprise data warehouse without ever having to replicate the data in Birst or move the data into the Birst cloud. So if an organization has gone through the process of building a data warehouse, they don't have to rip and replace that. They can sit Birst right on top of that. The second tier that I wanted to talk about is kind of in the middle of the screen here, where organizations now have other data sources that haven't made it into the data warehouse. Well, one of the things that Birst can do is it can pull that data into the Birst cloud into what's called a user-ready data store. That user-ready data store is an optimized view of the data for BI users. We provide an automated way of taking that data in and creating what's called a star schema so that users can query that information in an optimized fashion and not have to move that data into the data warehouse. And what's key about this slide is we can do both of those at the same time. We can provide business users access to the semantic layer so that they have one place to look at, and we can query both their enterprise data warehouse information and the data that's not in the warehouse and bring that data together in a report. Finally, on this slide, I want to point out the fact that we then allow users, business users, to access that information. And what makes Birst unique at this point is we provide all the different types of BI interfaces that organizations look for. If you need to have an enterprise or a print-ready report, Birst can do that. If you have to have an interactive dashboard, Birst allows that capability. If you have non-technical business users who want to create their own queries without having to go to IT, Birst has the capability to do that as well. All of these capabilities are available to be viewed in a mobile environment, and Birst does that with one tool. And I guess that's what makes it unique. Prior to coming to Birst a couple of years ago, I worked for 15 years for 2 different BI vendors who provided very similar capabilities to what you see on this slide. The issue is they had actually purchased different reporting tools to accomplish what Birst does with one tool. So instead of having to use multiple tools that have been purchased from different vendors and kind of banded together, Birst has been developed from the get-go to provide all these reporting capabilities to the end user. Finally, you'll notice on this slide the open client interface. We also provide for organizations who might be using some other reporting tool the ability to still use that reporting tool through an ODBC interface where you can take advantage of the single semantic layer that Birst can provide so that someone could use something, let's say, like Excel and be querying against information that comes both from the data warehouse and the sources that Birst has combined together. So those are some of the capabilities that Birst has. This is a general architecture of what Birst provides. And what I wanted to do next, what I wanted to do now is to move into a demonstration on the Birst solution. This might be a good time to pause, though, Chris, to see if anybody has entered any questions into the chat panel at this point. Anything, Chris?
Yeah, we do have one question so far. Does Birst provide any pre-built dashboards for certain industries?
Good question. So, yeah, we are a general-purpose business intelligence tool, so generally we don't provide any pre-built dashboards. However, there are a few applications. We have a number of customers who use Salesforce and NetSuite. And in those 2 particular cases, we do provide pre-built data models against the underlying data structures. and some out-of-the-box dashboards both for Salesforce and NetSuite. Now again, these are starting points. We don't expect you to just install them, click a button, and have total control or total reporting needs on Salesforce or NetSuite, but it is a very good start. And then with the ease of use of Birst, which I'm hoping to show you in the demonstration, users are able to expand on what we provide out of the box to give them the updated reports that they need for Salesforce or NetSuite. Anything else?
That's it for right now, Jim. Thanks.
Okay, great. So right now what I want to do is move into the demonstration of the product. And for everyone's benefit, I'm going to really do two different demos here. I'm going to take about 10 minutes and do what I call an end user demo. This will give you a feel for what Birst would look like for an end user and how they can interact with a Birst application, how they can slice and dice data, drill into detail, and the different capabilities that a user or a non-technical user would have access to. The second part of my demo is going to be a little bit more involved, and that's where we're going to go underneath the covers and actually build a business intelligence application from scratch. It's not going to be a very complex application, but it will give everyone an exposure to the integrated data platform and how Birst can pull information from lots of different sources and put together a user-ready data source and then start to build reports. So let me go ahead and start with kind of an overview demo of the business user interface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a browser and show you an application that was built in Birst already. Now, this example application is based on some retail information, and will give you a general idea of how Birst works. Now, the first thing to note about Birst is no matter what I do in the demonstration today, whether I'm an end user, or I'm an administrator, or I'm a technical person, everything that we do in Birst is done in a browser. Because we are a cloud-based solution, we don't do anything with client-based tools. So you don't have to worry about installing anything from Birst, or when we come out with an upgrade, going around to all the PCs in the organization to install the most current release. We do everything in a browser. So for Birst, all you need is credentials to log in. I've already logged in. We have a secure access to the system. So if I'm a user who comes into Birst and I should only have the ability to look at certain dashboards or certain data, I'm going to be limited to the information that I can see based on the rules that you can set up within Birst. In this particular example, you'll see that I'm starting off with kind of a dashboard screen that shows me some key performance indicators across the top left, like revenue, growth, percent of forecast. What's interesting about this application is we've combined the data from multiple sources and made it available to this user in one place. So even though this data is coming from Salesforce, a homegrown Oracle database, and an Excel file, a user can see it all in one place and doesn't need to know that there are 3 different queries going on or 3 different data sets behind this particular dashboard. Now, in addition to those KPIs, you'll see a number of different bar charts as well as a map. Birst comes with over 30 chart variants, so there's lots of different ways to display information in Birst. You won't see all of those today, but you'll see a representative sample. And the other thing to note about any Birst dashboard is you can interact with it, either through the use of this filter pane on the right-hand side, which will bring up all the objects that you can put filters on. Users can also interact with the dashboard directly. So if you notice in the bottom left-hand corner, I'm looking at a bar chart of revenue versus forecast, and I'm looking at it for 18 months. Well, if I just want to focus in, let's say, on the last 6 or 7 months or this year's data, you'll notice that a user can just lasso that data. I've gone ahead and lassoed the months within 2014, which is the last data that I have, and you'll notice that my dashboard has been updated to show only that information. So users can interact by simply dragging and dropping or lassoing pieces of information. What they can also do is they can drill down to detail. That chart that I just filtered is showing me monthly information. If I wanted to focus in, let's say, on this last month, which is July 2014, where my revenues look to be pretty good, $69 million compared to a year ago where they were $56 million. If I just click on this bar, it will actually drill down a hierarchy that you can define within Birst. In this case, we've drilled down from month to week, but I could continue my drill path to drill into the particular days within a week to see those numbers break down as well. Now, what we've done is because we've focused just on July 2014, you'll notice the breadcrumb across the top left where you could go ahead and just undo or remove those selections. You can see that I start to get red to show up in my dashboard. For July, we're having an issue with certain channels within the organization, and then my map has actually been updated to show me that I have a problem with an Asia Pac. One of the great things about Birst is it's very easy to allow users to navigate between information so they can slice and dice and drill into more detail. In this example, if the user wanted to focus in on Asia Pac to see why it's red, they simply have to click on Asia Pac. And when I do that, I'm actually going to drill down to another page within my dashboard, and I'm going to carry all of the selections that I made on the first screen to the second screen. So one way I can see that is this dashboard actually has 4 different pages: revenue, store performance, inventory, and forecast. I went from revenue to store performance with that click, and you'll notice that all of the filters that I made on the previous screen carry forward to this one. So now I'm able to investigate why Asia Pac is in the red. Now the map on the left-hand side is showing me the different store locations. The bar chart on the right-hand side is showing me my product performance by country. Now that tells an interesting tale. I can see that Japan is doing pretty well, where all of my product performance percentages are in the positive. Australia, on the other hand, has a number of products with negative growth. So once again, within Birst, I can very easily just lasso Australia. I want to focus in on that, and you'll notice that the tool allows me to, again, filter that information to see my stores in Australia and then also see my product lines. Now, again, the bar chart on the right tells an interesting story. It says that this green bar, which is mobile phone sales, is down 87% from the previous time period, which in this case is months. I might want to look at that a little bit more closely. So I'll click on the green bar, which allows me to drill into mobile phones. I can see mobile phone sales over my different states within Australia are low across the board. Now, one of the things about Birst is we do everything in a browser, and you'll notice this dashboard, if you can't pick it up, is HTML5. So what that means is I can go ahead and take this to another browser. I can take it to, let's say, an iPad, and we have responsive design built into our dashboards. So as the resolution of my display changes, my dashboard will automatically respond to that to show me that information. What HTML5 also gives me is the ability to put information below the fold. So you'll notice if I scroll down here, I can start to see more information about mobile phone sales in Australia. In this case, I have a line chart on the left-hand side that's showing me revenues for the 7 months in 2014, and I do see a big drop-off in mobile phone sales from June, which was at $1.6 million, down to July, which is $200,000. That causes some concern to me because I expected my revenue numbers to be about $1 million for mobile phone sales. And what I can also see within Birst is a more detailed report on the right-hand side. You'll notice the last row in this table report shows me that for July 2014, sure enough, my revenues are down to $206,000. So this number in this cell is showing me the same number that I saw in the line chart on the left-hand side. But what this also shows me is the reason revenues are so low is because we only sold 563 units in July. And probably the biggest reason for that, and I can see it with the color coding in the days inventory on hand column, is that we didn't have enough inventory of mobile phones to sell those. We should have about 5 days of inventory based on our company's standards, but we see highlighted in red that we only had a half a day of stock for most of our phones in our stores. Hence the reason we're probably having a problem with our revenues. Now again, Birst allows me to go to more levels of detail. If I click on July 2014 in this table, you'll notice I can go to the next screen, passing the parameters from the information from the previous screen if I wanted to, and now I can start to see an inventory detail report. Now the reason I wanted to point this out in the demonstration today is for the report on the right-hand side. This store inventory detail report is showing me detailed information by store of the number of units and the days inventory on hand that we have. This type of report is a report that I would typically use a enterprise reporting tool to create? Well, because Birst has those capabilities built in, this is just another report that I can build within Birst. And what's great about this report is it can be saved to different formats. So if someone wants to download it in PDF or Excel format, they can do that. This report can also be scheduled, so it can be delivered to thousands of users via Outlook. And they don't even have to log on to Birst to get this report. In addition to sending out or scheduling that report, we can also apply security conditions to that report. So I could have a single sales report that's sent out to 1,000 sales reps. Each sales rep would only see their particular numbers, while the VP of sales would see all the numbers. The ability to build this type of report on the right-hand side is, again, something that makes Birst unique compared to other BI tools, because where they're going to focus on the nice web interface, which I've shown you already, they're not going to really concentrate on also being able to put together print-ready reports like Birst does. So again, we could take this down to the lowest level where I could now again highlight on the left-hand side the stores that have increased inventory. It too would limit my store inventory detail report to show me stores that have lots of inventory. And now I can contact these stores and ask them to send their surplus inventory to our Australian stores. So what I've tried to show in this 10 minutes is kind of what a user would see when they're using Birst. An easy-to-use interface, very graphical, allowing you to interact with dashboards, slice and dice data, drill into detail, but also have detailed reports that could be scheduled and delivered elsewhere outside of Birst. Now, what most people ask me after I do this part of the demonstration is they say, well, that's a nice interface, but really the important part is being able to bring all this data together and make it available for people to build reports like this. And what's great about Birst is we have all that capability built directly into the Birst interface as well. And that's what I want to do with now the second part of the demo, is I want to go ahead and show you how this would be built from scratch, combining data from multiple sources. Now the interesting thing is to get into the administration tools, I don't leave this browser. I can simply come to the menu icon in the upper left-hand corner, click on that, and say that I want to go into another tool like the admin tools, or I want to go to the home screen of Birst. So on the home screen of Birst, you're going to be able to see the way that an administrator will actually interact with the tools. So let me go ahead and take you through that. Oh, one second here. Let me go ahead and bring up a different browser to do this. I was using Firefox. I want to use Chrome to do this part of the demo. Not because there's any sort of restrictions. I just wanted you to be aware that you can use any browser, Chrome, Firefox, or IE. What I'm going to do in this part of the demo now is start from scratch and show you how Birst can combine data sources and start to build these reports. Now this interface is clearly something that would be used only by an administrator. So with security in Birst, I can make sure that a user never sees this. Now, in this particular interface, you're going to see a number of different spaces on the left-hand side. A space is simply a work area that Birst supports. Birst allows you to create a single space, 5 spaces, or unlimited number of spaces in your environment, and you can secure a single space, or you can secure the independent or the individual spaces based on what you need to do. What I'm going to do for this demo is I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to click on Add Space in the upper right-hand corner. And because I want to show you the power of what we can do with Birst, I'm going to use the advanced data modeling capabilities so I can build a star schema based on information from multiple data sources. I'll click on Next and give this space a name. I'll call it a CRM Manager space. And I'll click Done. Now, one of the strengths of Birst is that's all you need to do to get started to build a business intelligence application. That's one of the reasons that we're able to implement systems so quickly. For most BI solutions, when you buy the BI software, you have to go out and buy the servers that the software is going to run on, the database structure that you're going to use to store information, the ETL tools that you're going to use to pull that data from multiple sources to put it into the data structure, and then you install your BI tools on top of that. With Birst, you get all of that, and all you have to do is create a space. It's as simple as that. Now, once the space is created, what we've done is on the cloud we've allocated database servers that you can start using. Now I'm in the administration tools, and the administration tools are really where an organization would do ETL, extraction, transformation, and load. Now we're not going to show you all the capabilities today because it might take a little longer. One of the things that I'm going to say at the end of this demonstration is if you want to go into more detail on this, please contact Chris at CRM Manager, and we can set up a more detailed presentation of this information. But let me just kind of guide you through how we would do this. Step one would be doing extraction, where I could extract from flat files, on-premise relational sources, or extractors to go access other cloud sources. So if you need to get data from Google Analytics or Marketo, Salesforce, NetSuite, we provide capabilities of extracting data directly from those data sources. Now the other thing I wanted to note about extraction is there's two ways that we can do that in Birst. We can connect to all these systems and extract the data into the Birst cloud so we can create a user-ready data store. But remember the two-tier demonstration that I talked about to start with. I could also use these capabilities to point to an existing data structure on-premise and not move the data into the Birst cloud. I can allow users to use Birst to query those data structures directly. For this demonstration, what I'm going to do first is extract some data from some data structures that I have on my PC. So very quickly, I'm just going to scroll down. I've got an Access database. I'm going to go ahead and use that Access database, open it up, and upload that into the Birst cloud. Now, in this case, we are moving data into the Birst cloud, but remember, that's not a requirement. We could keep data where it is and query it directly from that source. Now, once we've done that, we've actually read that data into the Birst environment, and I can go to what's called the data flow diagram and see the two tables that I had in my Access database, which were the account database table and the opportunity database table. I'm going to enable these so I can work with them. And you'll notice that they look like tables. Well, they basically look like rectangles, but they denote tables. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to upload a Excel file. One of the things that we want to highlight about Birst is it's very easy to go and get different data sources and bring those together. So when I go ahead and upload this Excel file, it's going to bring it up as another table. So when I go back to my data flow diagram, you're going to see the forecast table, which is an Excel spreadsheet, and it looks very much like the account and the opportunities table that came from Access. Now what you can do at this point is you can go after as many different data sources, whether they be cloud, on-premise relational sources, or anything that we connect through ODBC or JDBC, and I can go ahead and then start relating these. Now automatically Birst will see any keys that might be the same in these different database tables and create inner joins. So I can very quickly put these together. One of the things you can do with Birst is you can put together composite keys, left, right, full outer joins. You have total flexibility within this environment to do the transformations that you want. Again, that's something you're not going to see today, just because we don't have time to show you all the capabilities of this tool. What we can do with this, though, is once we've actually tied these data sources together, and this is one of the things that makes Birst unique, is we can click the Update button. What the Update button will do is it will build a star schema, business intelligence optimized data structure based on this data. So if an organization doesn't have a lot of experience in building a data warehouse or a data mart, we're able to take advantage of the secret sauce of Birst to put together this star schema. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see dimensional tables and fact tables, and this structure is optimized for business intelligence reporting. And we'll do that automatically for you at Birst. Now, the other thing that we can do as part of the ETL process is we can extract data. We can transform it using a scripting language that we can provide. We can also transform it into our star schema. And finally, we can load the star schema. Now, what's great about the load capability is we're loading data into a BI optimized data structure. And really what that means is it supports lots of things that organizations typically have to write manually. So I'm not sure if anybody's heard of phase 2 slowly changing dimensions or snapshots. Those are all data warehousing concepts that allow organizations to do historical reporting. Well, guess what? Birst does those automatically when it processes its data and puts it into a data structure. Not only does it support those data warehousing concepts, it also builds a semantic layer for you at this point automatically. We call our semantic layer a subject area, and we've built that for you just by processing the data. We give organizations the ability to customize that subject area, so if they want to hide certain columns, rename columns, make them more business-like so they don't look like columns from a database table, we'll provide you that capability so that business users will see an easily consumable environment to start building their reports. So very quickly, I have taken you through the process of Birst combining multiple data sources, generating a data mart that is optimized for BI reporting, and I process the data into that star schema. Now, one other thing that I've done there is I've added time capability to my data. I'll have full time reporting when my users start using this. And I've done that all in the matter of about 9 minutes. Now, the next thing that I can do is I can start using this application to put together a report. Now, the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to click on the Home button. It's going to take me back to a list of my different spaces. And I'm going to use the same one that I just created there because now it's going to be in my list. And you'll see at the very top, it's a CRM manager space. But you'll notice now when I highlight that space, on the right-hand side, I have a list of tools that I could use. All of these tools can be made available to your users based on security privileges. I'm going to want to build a dashboard on that particular space based on that data, so I'm going to go into the dashboard tool. Now, I'm not going to try to create a full dashboard like you saw in the demonstration, but I'm going to show you quickly how a business user can start to construct their dashboards and their reports without having to do any of the underlying data work. So you'll notice I've come into the dashboard. It gives me this new dashboard. I can rename it, so I might call this a CRM Manager Demo Dashboard. I'll change the name of that. And what I can do is I can simply start inserting objects into my dashboard. Now, because I don't have any existing reports, I can't pull any of those in. But you'll notice I can also add text areas, key performance indicators, images, embedded filters. So right away, because I've processed data and I have a user-ready data mart behind the scenes, I can go ahead and start adding key performance indicators. I can click on KPIs. It will show me my semantic layer. It shows me all of my data points that Birst has built for me and will allow me to place these data points as KPIs on my dashboard. My users might want to see, for example, the amount field. Okay? I get an example of what that amount field would look like. I don't like showing all the significant digits, so I'll probably change the format of that so that it shows in millions with 2 decimal points. I might want to change the title on that, but I'm also going to want to put an indicator on it. I want to know whether it's trending up or trending down, so I can specify this indicator on a different measure, the same measure, or some calculation. I'm just going to hard code my indicator and say, you know what, if the amounts are above, let's say, 70 million, I want this to be in green and have an up arrow. So in this case, I specify that. Specify should be a green up arrow. And if it's below that, I'm going to say, let's use a red down arrow. I'll go ahead and turn on this indicator, and now it's been placed on my dashboard with the appropriate indication. And you'll notice once I place something on a dashboard, it's very easy as a business user to just move it around, snap it to a grid, change the size of it to be as big or as small as I want to display on my dashboard. So that's the first thing that I can do, and I can place as many KPIs on this dashboard as I'd like. So hopefully you'll remember when I showed you the initial demo how I had that dashboard with the 3 KPIs. That's how I added it. Now I want to go ahead and add a little bit more detail. I want to add a new report. I don't have an existing one, so I need to add a new one. I click on a new report, and I'm going to do one thing before I do that. I want to publish that. Publish is how I save the report and make it available to other individuals. So once I've done that, now I can go back and insert a new report. I'll say OK to this. And what it will do is it will give me the interface that we use within Birst to create reports. Now this interface was built so that a technical user and a non-technical user can put together their own reports. The training for this tool is actually these 3 videos that are included when I click on the Help button. But what I hope to do in the next 3 minutes is just to show you how quickly you can put together a report and then include it on your dashboard. I'll go ahead and turn off the Help, and you'll notice first of all that I see attributes and measures over on the left-hand side. When I expand on the attributes, you'll see something that might look familiar. These are the tables that I connected to in Birst. I have the account, the opportunity, and the forecast table. Now this is not the actual tables that I'm looking at. This is the semantic layer. So once again, I could have changed this so it just said account, because my users probably don't know what the AX underscore means, and I can rename that in the semantic layer. You'll also notice we have the time dimension. That wasn't in the database that I brought in, but Birst has built that for me. Birst has also made different measures available for me. You saw that when I built the KPIs. And I can either drag and drop these on my report, or even better yet, I can do a search like Google up in the top of the screen to say, look at this semantic layer and show me where I have something that starts with expected. And you'll notice that the tool says, well, you've got expected amount in your semantic layer. If you want to include that on a report, you simply drag and drop it over to the right-hand side, and it will start to build a bar chart. Now I'm going to show you in a few seconds how you can change it to any sort of chart that we have, but it by default starts with a bar chart. So I put on the expected amount. Maybe I want to look at this by region, so I want to include a region. I simply drag and drop that over to my dashboard, and now I'm looking at Central, East, West. It looks like I have some bad data in this database that I've loaded because I've got some missing data. So I want to factor that out of my report. And what a business user can do is in this gray section in the middle, they can see the 2 values that they've added to their dashboard. They can simply drag region down to the filters. The left-hand side will change so that allows a business user to put together any filter they might want. And I can say, all right, I just want to focus on the East, Central, and West. Apply that filter, and we get rid of that bad data from this report. Now, they could continue to add more and more information. Maybe I want to do this based on segment. I search on segment, I find that, I drag it over to the right-hand side, and you'll notice Birst will make a recommendation for me. Whenever I have more than one dimension or attribute and one measure on a report, the tool is smart enough to say, here are the reports that are available, and put the one that's most likely used in the upper left-hand corner. So I'll go ahead and drag and drop it on the stacked column chart, and now I have my report available. Now again, this is a very basic report. There's lots more you can do with it. You'll notice a number of different icons across the top that will allow me to change chart settings, add additional calculations if they're not in my semantic layer, go ahead and do top and bottom reporting. What I'm going to do for today's demo, because we're getting near the end of our time, is I'm simply going to save this report. I'll call it my CRM Manager Chart. I'll save it. You'll notice I can save this in a shared folder where everybody can access this report, or put it in a private folder so that only I have access to it. But when I go ahead and save it, you'll notice I also can add it to the dashboard. So just by clicking Add to Dashboard, I've now added this to the dashboard that already had the KPI. And once again, I could just size this to be whatever size location that I want on the dashboard, and I could continue to add more and more tables, more and more charts to this particular interface. Now the last thing that I'm going to point out here is I can publish this, and when I publish it, it is now a consumable dashboard by my users. You'll notice if the user comes and says, you know what, I only want to look at the East region, they have the ability to lasso that region. It's updated my KPI and showed me that the East region amounts are $16 million, which is below the threshold that I had specified. You'll notice I can come up to the top of the screen and I can say, well, let's get rid of that East selection, and it will return my dashboard to its original state. And there I can go ahead and say, well, let's focus in on the Central region and go further at this point. Lots more that you can do with the Birst dashboard capability, but really what we wanted to highlight is in a matter of 20 minutes, I started with nothing. I started with a blank Birst space, which was easily created by just clicking a button and giving it a name. I connected to 2 different data sources. I combined those data sources. I had Birst build a optimized BI data structure in a star schema format and put a semantic layer on top of it. And then I started to use that default semantic layer to build reports and dashboards. There's many other things that we can do from the Birst perspective that we will want to share with you, and we're going to talk about that next. So let me go ahead and go back to my slides and just kind of summarize what we've tried to talk about today. We think Birst brings a different point of view to BI reporting. We are born in the cloud, which we think provides agility to organizations to get started quickly and develop quickly. We have an integrated data platform which allows organizations to address the tough part of business intelligence, and that's the data problem. We provide a number of different interface capabilities so that any type of user in the organization can report on using Birst, whether it's the dashboards that I really emphasized or it's the operational reports that you want to schedule and send out to thousands of users. We put a semantic layer on top of our data sources, and remember, it can be two-tier. I did not show you that today in the demonstration. I showed you only one tier of data. I brought data from Access and Excel and brought that into the Birst Cloud. But remember, I could easily supplement that semantic layer so that it also points at live data running in a data warehouse on-premise. Because of these things, we think Birst is pretty unique, and we hope that you want to take a closer look at that. And with that, what I wanted to do is I'm going to turn it back over to Chris, but I guess before I turn it over to you, Chris, I was wondering if there are any other questions in the chat panel that we can address at this point.
Yeah, Jim, great job. Fantastic demo. We actually have two, and I think there's a third question coming in. The first question is the Birst dashboard displayed in the Salesforce interface, or is it a separate cloud platform users log into?
That's a really good question. We have tremendous integration with Salesforce. So let me mention a few of those, and then I'll get to answering the question. So first of all, we can integrate with the Salesforce data directly. So I can bring in Salesforce objects or customized objects. As I mentioned, we have kind of a pre-built data warehouse against Salesforce that you could take advantage of. It's something we call a solution accelerator. When you start to integrate from the interface perspective, one of the things you can do with Birst is you can either run a Birst interface separately in the Birst Cloud and be reporting on Salesforce data, but most of our customers actually integrate the interface directly in Salesforce. So the dashboards I showed today, I can actually get those as customized web tabs within Salesforce, and we do support single sign-on. So the way that most of our customers use Salesforce is they log into Salesforce. They have an extra tab that appears that when they click on it, now shows them the Birst application directly in Salesforce. Again, the Salesforce users don't even know it's Birst because it's embedded within the Salesforce interface. They've used just their single Salesforce logon to get access to that data, but now they have new reporting capabilities that appear within Salesforce, and it really is Birst that's doing that work. So I hope that's answered the question, Chris, but yes, the interface can be embedded directly in Salesforce.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. We also have a second question. So Birst pulls data from multiple sources. How often is the data updated?
Oh, another good question. Yes, that is really controlled by an organization. So what I showed today was connecting to Access and Excel, and I pulled that data live. There is a scheduling interface within Birst that will allow you to schedule how often that happens. So organizations can pull every hour if they'd like. They can pull daily, they can pull weekly, they can pull monthly. It really depends on how often that data needs to be refreshed. Now, I do want to caution that typically we will not pull data on an interval less than an hour because, again, when we pull data, we're generating or creating the optimized BI infrastructure. If an organization needs data more often or at a more latent period than 1 hour, we would recommend that you would use Birst, but use a live connection. And again, that is not something I showed in today's demonstration, but with a capability that we have called Live Access, that allows us to go directly against the data structure where it resides on premise. So if the data is very sensitive and needs to be refreshed, let's say every minute, it probably would make sense to connect to the live data source to get that information, and that's an option with Birst.
Okay, and I think we have one final question, Jim. Can organizations use the data warehouse, data mart that Birst builds with some other interface?
And the answer to that is yes, they can. And that's a recent capability that's been added to Birst. In the past, the Birst data warehouse or data mart or whatever data structure you want to give to the Birst storage facility could only be used by Birst reporting tools. In the last few months, we have extended that where we now have an open or an ODBC connectivity into the Birst data structure. And the first two outside BI tools that we're using to allow organizations to report against the Birst structure is either Excel or Tableau. Now with our open database connectivity, if an organization wants to use Excel or they already have Tableau, they can use that on top of the Birst infrastructure, or again, they could still just use the Birst interface, which is the one that I showed today. Any other questions, Chris?
No, those are all the questions we have today, Jim. I appreciate it, and again, fantastic demo. I want to thank everybody for attending our webinar today. As you can see on the screen, if you would like some more information regarding Birst, you can certainly go directly to birst.com, and also alternatively, if you'd like to take a deeper dive with your company information, talk about your specific requirements, data sets, and what your needs are, definitely follow up with me, Chris Conroy at CRM Manager, and we'll be glad to set up a call, and we can also do a maybe 2 to 3 hour half-day data day where we come in and work with your data and show you the Birst platform. So again, thanks very much, Jim. I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate everybody's time. And we look forward to speaking with all of you in the future, hopefully. Thank you very much. That concludes our webinar.
Thanks, Chris.